G'day legends, so UFC Edmonton is in the books and let's just put this event behind us, okay? I think what UFC Edmonton showed us all is that it's not the apex, is it? It's not the apex that's sort of ruining regular fight nights in the UFC in 2024. The UFC's matchmaking seems to be absolutely garbage. I mean, it must be the matchmaking, right? It's not the fact that the UFC is putting on too many events. We have covered this on the channel before many times. 2023, the UFC actually put on the exact same number of events as they did back in 2016 when it felt like this sport was peaking. So it must be the quality of the cards, because yesterday proved that it's not the arena either. It's not the fact that they're at the apex. This was at a crowded arena. Broke North American records. People got ripped off and robbed. There seems to be something going on. It must be the matchmaking. I don't know if the athletes are overpaid and they are not trying as hard. I don't know if we're losing top competition to the PFL. We shouldn't be. The PFL is garbage. I think it's the matchmaking. There are plenty of 27 to 30-year-old athletes in Cage Warriors, in Eternal, at One Championship, at LUX, all over the world, but they're not in the UFC fighting each other. Instead, we have Alexander Romanov and women's MMA. But let's get into the card, hey? Speaking of women's MMA, the first fight of the night was Ivana Petrovic versus Jay Horth. I didn't watch it. I don't watch women's MMA. We covered this on the channel, okay? But there were some new members in the chat. There were some new members that didn't know about this. But whenever there is a women's MMA fight on, I choose to just politely walk away from it. I am not a UFC NPC that believes that you need to watch every single piece of content the UFC puts out. That is quite frankly ridiculous, because quite a lot of the content they put out these days is garbage. So what I do when I'm sitting there watching fights is I just hit Alt-Tab and I open up a new window and I watch ONE FC. Now there were some new members in the chat that didn't know about this, and they said, hang on, you can't be saying you don't watch any women's MMA. And I said, no, I'm done. I've walked away. They said, well, you have to watch the co-main event. I said, I don't want to watch the co-main event. So we opened up a poll in the chat. We squeezed out a poll to see which way the chat wanted to go. Did we want to watch the co-main event together? And I had to sit down and watch that. So I didn't watch this one. I ended up watching One Championship instead, which was way better. But I did watch the co-main event, and we will get to that when we get to that. The next fight was Chad Anheliger versus Cody Gibson. Now, Chad Anheliger got the piss wrestled out of him by Cody Gibson. If this was a man walking home alone down a dark alleyway, Cody Gibson would have done whatever he wanted. Yeah, if this was prison, Chad would have had his pockets turned out. The irony of being named Chad and having been essentially turned into another man's side hoe is hilarious. It was a great fight. In a way. I mean, it was fun to watch that happen to a bloke named Chad, right? Then we had Sydney versus Garrett Armfield. Yeah. That was a robbery. That was a robbery. I was talking to the chat, so I wasn't watching it that closely, but I went back and watched it. A second round. Look, it should have gone to Armfield. Everyone knows that it should have gone to Armfield. It is what it is, man. You got robbed. I'm sorry to hear it, brother. Next up was Romanov versus Nascimento. And well done, boys. Well done. Ranked UFC athletes. Beautiful work. Beautiful work. So the conversation obviously was bubbling in chat while we were loading up these fights and looking at them. Was like, so you don't watch women's MMA, you just watch something else? And I was like, yeah, I don't. And my life's been way better ever since then. But I'm also considering dropping the men's heavyweight division. And the chat members were like, what do you mean, Dougie? You can't be considering dropping the men's heavyweight division. And I was relaying to them that I indeed am. They are not tall, large athletes like you have in, say, NFL or rugby. These aren't Kiwi Maoris that spend the entire day running up and down the pitch. These are not fit athletes. These are just semi-naked, fat men. And not just dad bod fat. Not just you don't have abs, but you've still got some shoulder definition, some biceps, some veins in your forearms, but you're a bit chunky around the center. No. These are morbidly obese, disgusting human beings, and one of them, Romanov, is ranked in the UFC. Ranked in the UFC at a crowded arena on a fight night on ESPN on Saturday night. And I was like, I'm going to give it one round. And it turned into a WrestleFest. And I was sitting there watching these two fat, semi-naked blobs wrestling each other, thinking about all the minutes of my life that I've wasted away watching this crap. And I joined the Alt-Tab movement. I Alt-Tabbed the fuck out of there. I am no longer watching any men's heavyweight in the UFC outside of the top 7. You are not athletes. I will watch the weigh-in. If I can't see at least one rack of abs at the top, if you've got anything more than a slight dad bod, I don't care. And the argument is, oh yeah, but sometimes there's a knockout. How many fat blobs do we have to watch blob on each other where there might be a knockout? And if there isn't a knockout in the first, usually 3 minutes, let's be real, you UFC NPCs out there want to say the first round. 5 minutes is too much cardio for these boys. If they haven't knocked each other out in the first 3 minutes, we are there for 12 minutes of fat sweat. And I am no longer watching it when interesting, fun, knees to a grounded opponent, beating the piss out of each other is happening just an alt tab away over at One Championship. Moving on. So well done, boys. Well done. You got a huge weight off my shoulders, your weight, and watching your shit roll around a UFC cage every bloody weekend. I'm not doing it anymore. Jack Shore versus Yusuf Zalal was a great fight. Really great fight. It's good to see Zalal back. The fluidity in the striking was there, but also he did great wrestling, right? The wrestling looked really, really good, but let's not pretend that the wrestling didn't look so good, because unfortunately, Jack Shore, you're just not a bantamweight, mate. You're just not a bantamweight. That's not to take anything away from Zalal. The striking was beautiful. That knee up the middle was beautiful. The way that he transitioned through the shots was amazing. But you can just see on Shore's body that being a UFC bantamweight, it's just not your job, bro. I understand if you like food. I like food too. You don't want to cut the weight. I get it, man. But if you don't want to live the life of a flyweight, then, maybe that's not for you. Like, being a basketball player isn't for me. I just don't have the genetics for it. And your genetics, Jackie boy, are to be a flyweight, right? So you can either call Paddy Pimblett's team and learn how to do the most ultimate weight cut known to humankind, which is the Paddy Pimblett weight cut, or you can realize that, you are a flyweight. If you don't like that, then maybe it's not the job for you. I'm not a jockey. You know what I mean? I can't ride horses. I'm too big for that. You're not a UFC bantamweight. You're a bloody flyweight, mate. And if I think he fixes that section, I think he's going to be great, right? So, sorry, but moving on. After crushing Jack Shore's dreams of being a bantamweight, we're moving on, right? We are going to Charles Jourdain versus Victor Henry. Good fight. Great fight. Charles Jourdain is not the quitter that we thought he was, right? He is in there. He's still pulling gillies from the bottom. A wise decision. A wise man pulls gillies, ends up on bottom, and they usually land. And good on him. No. Right? As I was talking through to the chat about how gillies from the bottom never land, Charles Jourdain was just telling me to shut up through the camera, and good on him. Awesome. I like seeing him in this new division. I like that he seems to have a little bit of that fire still in him. I'm excited to see where he goes going forward. This was a very entertaining fight. I enjoyed this fight very much. Thank you, both of you, Charles Jourdain and Victor Henry. Moving on up to Ayman Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz. Zahabi beat the piss out of Munoz. Yeah, we got two great gatekeepers out of this fight. What do I mean by that? I mean, Zahabi is 36 at bantamweight. So unfortunately, it's over before it begun. You know what I mean? And but that he put on a great performance and he did a great fight. He's just not got the age that is required to make it to the top of a division that is just as brutal as the UFC bantamweight division. But what that means is that because the UFC have got these grizzled old vets in there, we have some real tough competition, a proper gatekeeper for those 27 to 30-year-old fighters to try and break through, and that is Ayman Zahabi. And then on the other side of that, we got Pedro Munoz, who goes to show that maybe he's not at that top 5 level anymore, top 10 level anymore, in that area anymore, but he's still got the dog in him. There's no quitting him. The guy can still fight. He can still swing. He can still press a pace. He's still got great skills. Would have been good to see him implement that low leg kick a little bit more. But overall, two great athletes that deserve to be in the UFC, deserve our watch time, deserve their money they're getting. Really awesome fight from both of them. Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed that fight. I really enjoyed that fight. That was great to see. So as we were watching the card, we were getting a little bit amped. Things were turning around. Things were getting a little bit better. And then Mike Malott waltzes out with his strut to face off against Trevin Giles and just puts on the most beautiful dance performance you have ever seen. Oh my Lord. It is the kind of performance where Izzy's leg kick coach from range, the one that told him to go out there and put Jared Cannonier in an urn and then just dance around the outside and do absolutely nothing. That coach that taught Izzy that move would be just loving what he saw from Mike Malott. It was beautiful. And the way that he was celebrating after every round, strutting back to his cage, acting like he had just won the Super Bowl. Mike is a prick of a man, robbing us from entertainment. strutting back to his corner at the same time. The avatar of Luke Rockhold has entered this man's bodies. He has entered that list of fighters that I can't wait to see get slept. Damn you, Mike Malott, for stealing us of any sort of fun and then acting like you were putting on just a hell of a performance at the same time. Mike Malott, he's the kind of guy to have a sock puppet account on Twitter, just owning the libs all night and then organize an anti-Ben Shapiro protest at school. Mike Malott, he's the kind of guy to befriend all the girls at college, give them a shoulder to cry on, and then spike their drinks at the party. Yeah, we need a new Bisping to counter what is happening here with Mike Malott. You get what I'm saying, boys, in the old faded tap-out hoodies? But 3 cheers in the chat. Anyway, moving on to Marc-Andre Barriault, MAB, as I'm going to be calling him from now on. MAB versus Dustin Stoltzfus. I thought Stoltzfus was going to pick boredom again. I thought Stoltzfus got in there, started wrestling, started, doing that prison style, and MAB, in the 4th minute, decided to get up, and he said, no, I'm sick of being pegged. I'm sick of being pegged. And MAB decided, you know what, I'm gonna do something wild here. I'm gonna try and make the UFC fun again. I'm gonna save the UFC, And then I started to get worried because MAB started swinging. I was like, oh my God, there's a fight breaking out in the middle of that octagon over there. I really thought the Canadian police were gonna come in and stop it. By this point, the card had convinced me that the Canadian Athletic Commission had gone in there and told the athletes to just try and make the fights as safe as possible. We don't want anything dangerous happening in this cage. And Marc-Andre Barriault, MAB, he just didn't get the message, because it's too bad. He went in there to throw down. And Stoltzfus was like, oh, we're breaking the rules. We're going to have a bit of a fight. All right, bet. And unfortunately, Stoltzfus fucking slept him, mate. But when MAB eventually regained consciousness, even Dana White was like, thank you, MAB. There's a check coming your way. You didn't have to make it fun. No one else decided to, but you did. So we appreciate MAB for his efforts. Marc-Andre Valhalla awaits you, sir. I can't wait to share a beer with you when we reach the holes of Sovngarde. Now, moving on to Ariane Lipski versus Jasmine Jasudavicius, I assume is her name. I don't watch her women's MMA, so I alt-tabbed across. It was beautiful. Go watch One Championship. It was a wonderful card on the weekend. If you need any links, just hit me up on any of your preferred platforms. Then I alt-tabbed back and watched Caio Machado versus Brenson Ribeiro, whatever the bloody name is, mate, Ribeiro. Nice little fight. Good fight, yeah? Machado won. He won the first and third, and then Sal D'Amato strikes again. Members of the live chat had a parlay going, and I could watch them on the chat screen have their money stolen out of their sports bet accounts in real time. It was horrible to watch. I really feel like Machado won that fight. The second that I saw Sal D'Amato read out that scorecard for Ribeiro, I was like, oh, here we go again, boys. Buckle up. So, RIP to Nacho's sports bet account. May it rest in peace. So then we get to Rose Namajunas versus Erin Blanchfield, and the chat bullied me into watching this. Go on, Dougie, give women's MMA one more shot. I went, all right, I'll watch it. Rose does her thing, whispers about how she's the best. Erin Blanchfield makes a lot of noises, lands nothing. Her aiming her punches is the most horrible aim I have ever witnessed, right? But then, as the fight goes on, Blanchfield, she started landing 1 out of 5 shots and making just as much noise as ever. And Rose started to slow down. And the more she started to slow down and not engage and end up in bottom on the scrambling positions, Pat Barry started to tell her that she was winning. Pat Barry started gaslighting her. That's what Pat Barry does. That's why Pat Barry exists, to gaslight Rose Namajunas. And after the 3rd round, I was like, geez, lucky that is a 3-rounder. Otherwise, I could see this not going well for Rose. And it turned out that someone convinced the UFC to tack on 2 extra rounds onto that. Why? Why? It solidified to me that I truly do not care what the chat says. I don't care if I end up streaming UFC fights and I'm just alone in an empty chat room during the WMA segments. I don't care. I am never, ever, ever watching it again. Ever watching it again. I am done. I don't care. And men's heavyweight outside of the top 7, you're both dead to me. I am not wasting my time watching this crap. It's like golf. I don't talk about golf because I don't care about golf. I don't have a golf channel where I'm just ragging on golf all day. Quite frankly, I don't like bullying things. I like poking and having a little bit of fun, but when I genuinely do not like something, I just don't want to talk about it because, quite frankly, I don't like putting people down when it's not playful ribbing. And we are past the point of playful ribbing. So I'm just politely walking away, and I'm going to ask you members of the chat and the channel to respect that. I don't want to be involved with whatever the fuck the UFC and WMMA are doing. I am alt-tabbing across, and then when the fights are over, I'm alt-tabbing back across to the UFC card because I am not ever watching that again. It's dead to me. Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi. Brandon Moreno beat the shit out of Amir Albazi for 25 minutes. Oh my God, Brandon is back. I thought Brandon Albazi knew that he was losing a little bit of that dog in him, a little bit of the fight in the fighter. And I was like, all right, that's like, I respect a man that knows like when his time is coming to an end. And he went and took some time off. And Amir Albazi, we all know what he went through: a couple of heart surgeries, a couple of back surgeries, a couple of eye surgeries, a couple of head transplants. The guy like went through bloody hell to get here. And I thought a man that has been through hell is going to have more fire in him than a man who is sleeping on Lego sheets than Brandon Moreno, right? The guy who's sort of half in, half out. This was my thinking to the fight. And I was wrong. I can admit that. Yes, I can admit when I was wrong. Brandon Moreno beat the piss out of Amir Albazi for 25 minutes. And in the 24th minute, when Amir Albazi was clearly down in every conceivable way, Amir Albazi pulls a Max Holloway and points to the canvas. And if you watch that sequence back, which I've done a couple of times since then, just watch that sequence back, Brandon Moreno goes, all right, and stands on the Monster Energy can, puts his hands over it, like guards up, and he's like, here we go, your turn. You want to do it? I'll do it. And Amir Albazi immediately backs up. And Brandon is like, oh, what the hell? So he chases him and strikes on him. There is no point during that sequence where Brandon Moreno leaves the Monster Energy logo and stops swinging. When Amir Albazi points to the ground, Brandon's like, let's do it. He sees the logo beneath him and he's like, this is my logo. Let's die inside of this logo. And Albazi immediately retreats. The only time Moreno leaves the Monster logo is when he does a Rolling Thunder at Albazi and fucking lands it. Oh, beautiful work. Oh my God. Oh, if you point to the ground and leave the Monster Energy logo, you should get fined. And the fine should go to Max Holloway. Like, it should be like in the rule set that you do not point to the canvas and then leave the logo in the center of the canvas. That is a no-no. If you point to the canvas, you're saying this is it. We turn into phone booth boxing or car jiu-jitsu. That's a real thing, by the way. What a world we live in. Like the Monster logo is now the cage. There is no leaving it. Unless you Rolling Thunder out of it. So good, man. Anyway, that was UFC Edmonton. Overall, pretty dog shit card. Thank God that Moreno was in there. Thank God that Marc-Andre Barrier decided to have a fight. It was a wonderful, wonderful night from those boys. Zahabi, great fight from Zahabi. Well done. Charles Jourdain, welcome back. Jack Shaw, just cut the weight. You're a talented athlete. Just cut the weight. Women's MMA, goodbye. See ya. Never doing that again. Fat ass heavyweights sweating on each other. Goodbye. Never doing that again. And yeah, wonderful night. So if you enjoyed this recap, if it's your first time here, g'day. My name is Dougie. I try and make an MMA video every single day. So if you want to know when they come out, hit that subscribe button. I go live 3 times a week. So if you want to know when that happens, hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button. And if you're already on board with the channel, hit that like button, help the channel grow, and I will see you all in the next video.